So in this video we're going to start spawning in the pieces so they'll start falling down and stuff, and we're going to start the coding process. So we're going to go to scripts to add our first code or our first script. We're going to want to right click, create, and we're going to be making a C# script. So it should be right under the folder button. This will pop up. We'll name this Game Manager. So Game Manager in Unity, it changes the gear. It changes to like a gear shape. Usually it's just like shows the C# like it was before. But Game Managers have like a special thing in Unity. It basically just means it's going to control the features in the game. And that's just kind of like a standard with Unity, I guess you call it Game Manager. So after that does it, you want to double click on it. And it opens up Visual Studio, but it might take a while. So I'll come back when it finishes opening. So once this opens up, you can see it says void start and void update. So these are just the default Unity things, functions that they have, and it tells you what they do. So this one, right when we press the play button, all the code in here will go, and then this one, it loops through this thing every single frame of our game. So some basic stuff. We have this debug log statement. And if you've coded before, it's similar to like print or like console.write. So it'll just put whatever's in here and display it to Unity. So if we say like debug message, and we go Control S, and then if we switch back to Unity, so it's not actually in our scene yet. It's just like how these prefabs are. They're not actually part of it, so we just have to make a quick game object real quick. Be called Game Manager, and then we just drag and drop this onto there. Okay, now if we press play, see it shows debug message. If you go to the console tab, that's where it shows you, it'll have a bunch of messages as we go on, and also down here it shows the top message right there. And you can mess with these like I like. I have both clear on play and clear on build if you click the arrow drop down. And collapse just helps if you have the same message repeated multiple times. But that's more just preference. Okay, now go back to the code and show you the other stuff. So the other two type of debugs is this debug, oh, and I should be making that capital, dot log error. I'm just going to leave it blank for now. And debug dot log warning. So this just shows what type of message it is for Unity. If it's like an error message or warning message or just a normal message. And I'm just going to put this in the update for now just to show how it works. And we can probably just move it later. So this will be, I'll just say error and warning. Oh, and make sure to do, I don't know if I said this before, but both times you have to do either Control S or you go to File Save. And you know everything's saved if everything's green here. It's yellow if it needs to be saved. So now if we press play, it'll show a bunch of messages. Yeah, see it says there's already like almost 2,000 here. And if I like undo the collapse button, you can see how many there are. It's already like maxed out on the thing. So that's why collapse is helpful, just so you can see 3 things instead of, 2,000 things. Or actually it's like 11,000. Yeah, so I mean, this just tells you how fast some of your computers can be. Like it's doing it, we've only been doing this for like 20 seconds and it's already at 20,000 frames. I think, yeah, 20,000. I'm just going to move this over now just to show you an example. So I'm just going to drag and drop these over here just so we don't have to worry about them. The next thing I'm going to show you real quick is public and private. If you've coded before, you know what they are. So we just type public, and I'm just going to make a string for now. and this will be called debug start message. And then I'm going to put this thing into here. And how it works with Unity is if it's public, it shows up in Unity, but private does not show up in Unity. There's a few exceptions you can kind of get around it, but generally public, the other scripts can access it, and Unity itself. And then if you just leave it blank or type in private here, it will take that away. So once you save Visual Studios and go back into Unity, we're going to go to Game Manager, and then now there's this debug start message, this little prompt. So I can just try typing in, we'll just say start message. And then I'll put an exclamation point because I don't think I did that last time. See, now if I press play here, it'll show that message in here. This message will go into there. So now you can add a bunch of stuff here, like all the different variables, not just strings. You can add here and affect it. And instead of having to go back into code and changing stuff, you can do it through Unity. And since I moved the these two messages into start, they're not spamming the whole screen now. So back in Visual Studios, I'm going to add two more public. Now they're going to be game objects. And a game object is basically anything that's going to be in the Unity hierarchy. So it's like this, this, this. All of these things are considered game objects if it just has like a name and a transform. So we're going to name this one player 1. And we're going to make another one called player 2. So just Control S that. So back in Unity, we're going to see, if we click the game manager, we're going to see player 1 and player 2. So we're going to go down to prefabs and just drag and drop both these in. So it's player 1, player 1, player 2, player 2. That's why it's helpful to name stuff right, so it's pretty easy to match. There's another way to search stuff. If it's harder to find something, you can click this little eyeball, and then a menu will pop up. And if you have a lot of stuff on there, you can select which one you want from there. So now we're going to create the input for our game. So when we click on a row, it actually spawns a piece. So if we go to our scenes view, we're going to go add a 3D object, a cube this time. And we're going to try to configure it in the right area. So I want the first one to be right over here. So I usually, to line stuff up, I put in the rough area, and then I look over here and try to get the numbers round, because that's probably where it should go. That's why it's a good thing to keep all your numbers round, unless it's like something artistic like this, just so it's helpful in the code. So we have the box now. In this mesh renderer thing, we want to remove this. So now it's invisible because we don't want the box to actually be shown. We want it to be invisible, but now we can still click on it because it has this box collider thing around it, which means it's interactable and we can click with it. So over here, size, I'm going to make the y-axis bigger so it covers the whole thing. And then now we can drag it up a bit. Let's see, how high do I want this to be? I think there's fine. So now it'll kind of go in this range here. So if you click even a little bit above, it'll still interact and spawn a piece. Say position 0, Z still 0. We're going to go here and change this to input field. And I'm just going to call this 0. Generally in computers, you start counting at 0. So I'm going to call this 0, and then I'm going to duplicate it. So if you right click, and then you can go duplicate, and change this one to 1, and then drag it over 1 unit on the X. And then I'm just going to go do that for all those till we get to the end real quick. So once you have all these selected, or created I guess, we're going to make another just empty game object. And this one's just going to be called input fields, and we're just going to drag and drop all these in just so it's a bit nicer. And the nice thing about starting at 0 is that it's actually another thing. So yeah, when you create game objects and attach it to another thing, it'll change the offset. So actually I'm going to go fix that real quick. So if I take these out, I just want to make sure that this thing is centered at the origin. So 0, 0, 0. And now if I drag and drop everything, it won't mess it up. But yeah, like I was saying before, this one says 3 and the x-axis is at 3. So everything will work nicely if we have to convert between world units and like code units. Now we're going to create another script for the input fields. Create C# script. Input. And I don't remember if I said that, but you right click to get up there again. So here, sometimes gets like a little bit, like Unity doesn't, like you can't click on stuff right when you make something like a script because it's just creating the script. It'll like be a few seconds. And for now, I'm just going to drag and drop all these on here, just so we don't have to worry about it later. And then you can check real quick. So yeah, double click to open this up. So I'm going to create a public int called column. And this will just tell the game manager which column we're actually selecting. We're not going to actually need start or update, so you can just get rid of all that. And here we're going to make a new one. So this is going to be called void on mouse down. And it auto-completed stuff just because I have it set it up with Unity. I usually like taking this private off because it automatically defaults to private. What this on mouse down does is when you click on something, when your mouse actually goes down, then it doesn't input. It'll execute the code in here. And the only thing make sure is it has to have a box collider or something that the mouse can interact with. So in here, for now, I'm just going to say debug.log, and then we're going to say see column number is, and then just plus the column. And then so once we put the integer value in Unity, when we click on it, it should say this message with the correct column number. So after you save Visual Studios, you're going to want to go to each input field and just change this new column to its correct number. And once we do that, if we go to play, I'm going to go to console tab again and see if I click on this. It says number 0. This should be 1. It says 1 there too. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, everything works. So now go back to Visual Studios. We're going to go to the game manager, create a new function. This one's going to be public just so the input field can access it. Public void, and it's going to be called select column. And for this we want an int, and that's just the column. Okay, and then in here we're just going to do something like we did in the other one. We're just going to do a simple debug.log, and we're going to say like game manager column, and then just the column number. This is just to see if everything works. So just save it, and in here we have to make a way for the input manager to access the game manager. There's different ways. I think the easiest one is just to say public game manager, and then this is referring to the script of it. So then if we go down here, oops, sorry, I have to name it. I'm just going to call it GM for game manager. So now down here we can say GM dot, I forgot what it was called, select column. And then we can just input the column number right there. So if I just save that. So now in here, this is our game manager object. So for each of these, I'm just going to do, if you hold down shift, it can select everything in here. So I'm going to grab this game manager and drag it and drop it into there. So now it's accessing the game manager script that's on there. So now if I just go to play now, should clear everything but those. So now if I click this, it'll say game manager column number 4. So that means that the game manager is actually the one that's saying the message to. And it should say that, yeah, game manager is saying that. So that's what we want. So now we're going to make the spawning pieces, or the spawning locations for the pieces. So we're going to do what we, well, it's going to be similar to what we did earlier. Just going to create an empty, and we're going to drag this up to here. Make sure these are 0, and this one's 0 for now. And then you can adjust the height later. So this is going to be where our piece spawns. I'm not going to put it exactly there. I'm going to put it a little bit above the board just so it falls down into it. Because when you normally place a piece in this game, you can't place it like inside each of these holes. You have to place it at the top and it slowly falls down. So put it like right there for now. You can always just change it. This will be called spawn location and then 0. And then again, like the input fields, do that for each of these. So once you duplicated the last one, there'll just be a bunch of spawning locations on the top here. And then again, we're going to create another empty. This will just be called the spawning locations, just so everything gets organized. Oh, actually, yeah, I have to make sure this is set to 0. And then this one just got moved to the top. Okay, so now that should be good for now. Go back to Visual Studios. So in here, we're going to make another public game object. This time it's going to be an array. So to make array in C#, you just go like that, off of the variable. And this one's going to be spawn locations. So now it has a reference point. So this just adds all the objects, and then basically we're going to align them all up, and we're going to just input, say like if it's column number 3, we're going to say find the like third object in here, or find the game object with index 3, and then spawn it at that location. So to do that, we're going to make a new function. It's going to be void take turn. So this will just access when we want our player to take a turn. And then all we need to know is the column number. So we're going to go like this. And in here, we're going to do this function called Instantiate. And then if you do the open brackets, or just start the open brackets, Unity gives you a menu. You won't be able to see it, but there's like a drop down. If you do right, there should be a drop down which just shows you all of the different functions you can do with this. And this is really helpful if you wanted, if you forgot what you need to put into it to make the function work. It tells you need this, this, and this. And it sometimes gives you a little description of what it actually does below. So in Instantiate, the first thing it says is our object. So we're going to be doing the player 1 for now. Later we'll do where it switches player 1 and player 2 depending on the turn, or whose turn it is. Next is the position. So that's by our spawn locations. Spawn location. And what we put in here for the index is just going to be the column. And last, you need a rotation. we're just gonna say quaternion.identity. That's just a fancy way of saying like the rotation of the object of this object, the player one object, but it just keep its rotation at like its default. It's just a fancy way, but you have to put it in. Oh, what's wrong with this? Oh yeah, so for this is a game object, and it's saying right here, it's a game object, and it's trying to turn it into vector3. So vector3s, I don't know if I explained it yet, but it's 3 points. So if you've ever done vectors before, it's like a direction. So vector3 means it's like in world space, there's like an x, y, and z basically. So to access this game object's position, because it says we have a game object, but we want a vector3 from it, which the position vector3. So we're going to say transform.position. There's also other ones like transform.rotation and transform.scale, but we just want the position. And you do this like gameObject.transform.position a lot in Unity, depending on what you're doing. The last thing we need to do in code is when we select a column, we want it to actually take a turn. And this feels like a bit like kind of, I don't know, it just feels a bit, I don't know, redundant, I guess, because this thing's just going to here and this thing's just going to directly there. But when we add a lot more code, it'll make it a lot easier. And this is just nice that it's just selecting the column and then all of our actual code's going down here. But we'll add more code into it. It won't just be like this thing's going directly into there no matter what. So after you save and go back into Unity, you're going to want to go to the game manager again, and then there's the new spawn location. The size here, it's going to be 7, and this is how arrays look. They have a little drop down when they're public. And then we're just going to drag and drop each of these in. So now it'll all be set up in the code. So now when we click on a spot, it will spawn the piece, hopefully in the right spot. See, try clicking here. So it's kind of working. It is spawning a piece there, but I don't know if you can tell, but it's kind of like shifting up a bit. So I think that's because the input fields, they're interacting. See how they still have a box collider? So when the piece is spawning, here actually I can just see it right here. So if I click on it, the piece is resting right on top of it. So if I just click this input fields, and we can just drag this whole thing back a little bit, say to like right there. So now if we press play, yeah, now the piece falls. The only problem now is obviously the piece is falling through the board. It should stop right there, but it isn't. So to fix that, we just need to add another box collider. So we're going to go to plus 3D objects. We're going to basically do the same thing we did to create the spawn locate or the input fields, at least the setup of it. Let's just go to 0, 0, 0. Let's see, right here, you need to remove that. And we're gonna put it so it's right about here, so the piece just rests right on the top of it. Let's see, move this in the middle. I think it's 3, -1. And then let's see, size on the X, like right there. And then we'll call this, call it like ground or something. Doesn't really matter too much. Okay, now let's see if we go back into it. Pieces, now it stops right on it. Now you can almost play. That's kind of funny. Okay, well, that is it for this episode. Next one, we're gonna be fixing all these like weird bugs that we're having right now. They actually look pretty funny too. So yeah, we'll fix all of that in the next episode and start setting up the second player as well.